Today we're going to be installing a Coolance VID NX680 on an EVGA GTX-680. And here's the 680. It's just the regular base version. It's not like super clocked or anything like that. It's a reference series. Make sure you're using a reference series card with this particular water block, as it may have some clearance issues if you do a different kind of non-reference 680. Coolance is the product we have here. This is a full coverage video card block. They're very nice. It's a solid copper block, and it's nickel plated, so you can run different kinds of metal in your loop. Here's a package of stuff that comes in it, and here's the block right here. They used to make kind of a neat one where it was partially plexiglass, and then it had like a metal plate over the front, which made it kind of neat for when you can paint them up and make them look nice. But looks like they've gone to the ways of everyone else, and they use acetal now for a majority of their products, with less copper in it. I'm sure in the long run it saves them money as metals become more expensive, but as you can see here, it's a pretty precision machined item. I'm sure, you know, somewhere where they're made they use a CNC mill to mill them down, and they do a good job. Been running these blocks for quite a few years now, and I've never had a problem out of any of them. They're very good quality. Matter of fact, I still have GTX 280s, two of those with two of their blocks on them. I have a 480 block. Here's a bag of screws that you'll get that you need to attach to the block. Make sure you use those screws and those washers so don't lose them. I don't really recommend using their thermal paste, so you can throw that crap away. Also in this bag you're going to find two different thicknesses of sheets of thermal pad. And the reason for that is because some of the, like I said, cards, they'll need thicker thermal pads on them, and you can see there's a difference in thickness, and some of them will need thinner, so just make sure you use whichever your block needs. And like I said, right here is a list of where you need to put the thermal pads, and if it is a reference card that you're putting this on, the thickness that you need is the 0.7 or 0.07. And this right here is the little manual on how to install it. It's basically a paper representation of what I'm showing you in this video, and you'll definitely want to take a look through it. So to start, you want to just start by removing the screws in your card. There's like about a bazillion of them, so just one by one take them out. Best to use a precision screwdriver. Mine really here that I'm using isn't really a precision screwdriver, so but you can make it work. You know, if you don't have a set of nice precision ones, you can make do with something, you know, smaller, or just a regular screwdriver. And we got more screws here. I try to speed this up to make it as fast as possible, but there's, like I said, a bazillion screws, so it's take a while to get all of them out, even at 500% speed. And three more right here on the bottom, and that should just about do it. If we can get it out. Come on, come on. Get out of there. Gotcha. Okay. Now you should be able to pop the lid right off. There's a good look at what you're left with, and then the fan that's on there from the factory, won't be needing that anymore. We just take these fins right off. Sometimes you might have to wiggle if your if your TIM got kind of dried out, you can kind of give it a wiggle and it'll come right off. And then you want to make sure you unplug your fan off the fan header on the board first. Don't really recommend pulling on the wires to release it. You can do it that way. If you use a screwdriver and pry up against the metal thing, you can usually pop it out a little bit better, and you don't have to really risk pulling one of the wires out. I mean, it's, just take your time, go slow, use leverage, and try not to break the wires, because it'll suck if you break the wires. And then with a little bit of force, you can get that piece right off of there. That's basically the memory cooler, so you can see where all the thermal pads are. Make sure you pull all the any kind of extra thermal pads that are left on the card. Make sure you remove those. And something that I do to keep track in case I need to RMA my card, or in case I want to sell my card and the person I'm selling it to doesn't use water cooling, or they don't want the water block, you just put all the screws back in, that you took out, and then you can put this this OEM cooler back in the your packaging that your card came in, and throw it in the attic or closet or something like that, so that you can always put it back to how it was from the factory, in case, like I said, you want to sell it, trade it in. EVGA does like an upgrade thing. Matter of fact, that's actually how I got this card, because I upgraded, or I bought a 580 and then the 680s came out. So I went ahead and joined the anytime upgrade thing within 90 days of purchasing, and they gave me this GTX-680 for free. Next thing you want to do is use some rubbing alcohol, and then using like a towel, you need to clean the TIM off the GPU processor. Just regular old rubbing alcohol. Mine's actually expired, but it still does the job. I only pretty much use that bottle for computer stuff, so I've had it for quite some time. But you just gently wipe it away. And what I do is, because you never know, sometimes like the thermal or the TIM that I use, or thermal paste that I use, actually has little bits of silver in it. And though it's probably just my OCD-ness, try to make sure that you don't get it down on that little green area. So what I use is some alcohol on a cotton swab, and to make sure that I remove any of that TIM that might have fell down in between those little connections there. Like I said, in the slim chance that any of that like stuff has silver in it, that it is down there, and that it does actually make a connection and conduct electricity through 2 points, it could fry it. So like I said, it's just one of my little OCD things that I do, and I make sure I clean it up like really good. After you got that clean, then you'll want to clean off the tops of all of the little pieces of RAM. That way there's no debris in between, and you've got a good connection, a good flat clean connection between your thermal pads and the water block. Don't want any dirt or any kind of debris in there, so just clean it off really nice. And you should have something that looks similar to this once you've got it all cleaned up. And then you want to start working on the water block itself, and you're pretty much going to do the same thing. You want to make sure that you don't have any dirt or debris, so you want to clean it up really well, all the little connection spots. Down in the little milled area where you see where like the drill milled out the pieces of metal, you don't necessarily have to clean in there, because that's not going to touch anything. Just all the parts where it's going to be touching either thermal pad or thermal paste, make sure you clean all that up really good, and keep it clean from debris using your rubbing alcohol. And then, like I said, the 0.7, that's the thickness that it requires for the reference series cards, which this is, because it's one of the first ones ever before they had any super clocked or anything. And they used to have little guides under the paper where you can cut your thermal pad up and it was kind of like a stencil. I never really used that stuff, but the easiest way I found is just take yourself like a little Sharpie marker, and you match up two sides, put you a dot on that one side, and then go to the other side, match it up, and put a dot there. Then using like the other pad or some other piece of straight object, you just draw straight lines where the two intersect, and then that's it. You just cut that square out, and that's usually good enough. So that's what I'm going to do here. And as I have it drawn out, and I just use a straight razor. You can use scissors. I just use a little Alpha knife and just cut straight through one side. I already cut my desk up enough, but my old lady was yelling at me, so I had started using this little box to cut on. But so just be careful where you're cutting when you cut with something like this. If you're using scissors, it's probably not as big of a concern. Now, one thing you need to make sure is that you pull off both sides of the plastic and then go ahead and lay it on the water block. Both sides of this thermal pad will have plastic on it. Like the side that you can see where I'm marking on now, it's kind of the shiny side. I believe on this thickness, the other side had like a piece of blue film, but sometimes it can be clear on both sides. Just whatever you do, make sure that you get that plastic removed. There you saw I pulled it off the bottom of that side, and then now I'll be separating the clear side up here. But if you forget and you put that stuff on there, it's not going to transfer heat very well with that plastic. So it's very important that you make sure you get that stuff off. This plastic also serves a really good purpose. You know, as you go ahead and do this for all of the little parts where your thermal pad needs to go, just make sure off of at least one of these that you save the little like clear plastic piece that comes off the top, because it's going to become very useful in the next step. That's a nice hand. It's all up in the camera, isn't it? Yeah, there's the little plastic thing right there. Now I use some silver-based Tim. You can use whatever you want, Arctic Silver, or whatever. I mean, whatever you prefer. I just have some cheap stuff that's from like Best Buy or something, you know. It is silver-based, so it's a pretty good thermal paste. And then get that little piece of plastic, and then what you'll do is you'll spread it out and make a nice good thin layer across the top of the GPU here. And like I said, you know, it's probably not a big deal, but you know, I just make sure, like, you know, when you have a $500 video card, it's probably best to make sure you try to do everything you can that you don't mess it up. So if you can, just make sure you try to keep as much of the thermal paste on top of the GPU as possible. Like I said, with this stuff having silver in it, the chances that if you got it on the little connectors around that it would create a short is probably pretty slim, because the silver is so ground up. But there is a possibility, and because of that possibility, do your best to try to keep it not, you know, on the top of the GPU. Don't get anywhere else. Next, I used a little foam that was in the packaging, and you see how I have it laid with the video card block sideways across it. That's so whenever I'm going to take my GPU card and I'm going to lay it on the block, lining up my holes as I go down. But because the card has the 2 slot on one side and the power connector sticking out the other side, if you did it the long way, it would hit before it hit the card. So this way it gives you ability to have recess to do it. Then you take your screws, put your little plastic washers on, and then you just start putting them in. I start with the 4 that go around the GPU first, since it has the thermal paste on it. You get it, you don't put it in tight, you just kind of like set it in, and just do that for every single screw. You know, put the screw through its little plastic washer, and then lightly screw it into the board. Just get it where it like just barely butts up against the board, or even looser than that if you want, just to get them all in there first so the block doesn't slide around on you and move your thermal pads, or move your thermal paste all off or anything like that. Now once you get them all in, then you can tighten them up. You can go ahead and tighten them up. They don't have to be super tight. Like I said, I'm using kind of a lame screwdriver here, so in order to try to keep it from slipping out and scratching the board or something, I'm having to apply some pretty decent downward force on it. Just like I said, be careful that you don't put too much and end up breaking the board. Just enough so that your tip of your Phillips bit won't pop up out of the screw and like strip the screw or go scraping across or anything like that. And these things don't have to be super tight. Probably like maybe 10 foot-pounds of torque probably is what I would have to guess if you were using a torque wrench or something. They don't have to be super tight. They just need to be tight enough to hold. That's all. And then as you can see, you can look through here and you can make sure you have good connection on all your thermal pads and where the water block meets the GPU itself. And you should end up with something similar to this right here. Something like that. And then you want to just probably take you a rag and maybe with your alcohol again, clean up your front of your car, get all your fingerprints and nastiness that you got on it while you were working on it, and get that all off so it looks all nice and pretty again. Once you got that done, that should be it. It should be nice and pretty and ready to go in and do some overclocking.